Hey folks, it's Todd Tremonti. Thanks for joining us this month. Really looking forward to the topic today. It's actually been a hot topic around our office for the last couple of weeks as we've had some new people starting on our team and getting rolling in a couple of different roles. So thanks for being here. Excited that you're here. Scott Solari is with us today on the call, so he's going to be asking some questions on your behalf and kind of checking in with you guys on Q&A. And these guys over at Viral do an awesome job of helping us with some of our cool marketing stuff and videos and stuff like that. So definitely you guys can check with them on that kind of thing too. But he'll be helping us make sure we keep all the technology working and keep this ugly mug on the screen. So, hey, what we're going to talk about today for the most part is role specialization. Now, this may not be a really new topic for a lot of you guys, but we're going to dig into some of the details of my business and some of the best real estate businesses that I'm aware of all over the country. As I'm running my team and as I'm consulting with other team owners and business owners around the country, we're talking specifically about how to get max productivity and profitability out of one person. That person may be yourself. That may be someone else that you've hired or someone that you're partnering with. But we're going to talk about that. Whether you're a solo agent or you're a big team leader, how to use the idea of specialization to be more effective and more productive and more profitable. And at the end of the day, let's be really careful that we don't get all hyped up over all these kind of cheesy business words. Let's just be really honest. Being specialized is going to allow you to enjoy what you do more and really build the kind of business that you probably want to build. And maybe you don't. Maybe you want to be a specialist and a generalist, and this is not the way you want to go. That's fine. But I would definitely look into it. It's been transformational in my business. We'll probably talk some about that, just about how as we've implemented specialization and really focused, we've been able to be significantly more productive. And to be honest with you, the more focused we've gotten, the more freedom and flexibility we've had as individuals on the team to be able to take time off, do what we really enjoy doing, and hand off stuff that we really don't like doing or we're not very good at. So we'll talk a ton about that. Scott will be asking questions. You guys can definitely ask questions too. He'll tell you guys how to do that. But I'm excited that you guys joined us today, and we're here every month trying to cover topics that are relevant to your business and relevant to my business, and I want to share everything I can with you, and I want to learn from you guys, and then some of us will take it offline and dig even deeper, but I'm ready when you are, Scott.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, Todd. I appreciate being here with you, and yeah, guys, just there's a Q&A on the right side, so just ask questions, and we'll go through them and get to them as soon as we can. So let's start, Todd, with, we know within real estate that, most single agents are running around doing a million different things, right? So yeah. When was that moment for you where that kind of light bulb went off and you started to use specialization?
Yeah, it's interesting because I remember like almost the exact moment that happened, and it wasn't one of these kind of light shining aha moments. It was just kind of, all right, I'm tapped out. There's not much else I can do here, right? So I mean, I can literally remember having 5 or 6 deals going. I want to say 2 or 3 buyers and I think 2 or 3 sellers at the same time, and just saying what check is going to what title company and which one of these amendments goes with which one of these contracts, and just thinking I've got a good problem here, but the problem is I'm not doing any of these things as well as I could be. But I'm getting by. Like, nobody's really noticed yet. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not caught yet, but it's going to happen soon, and it's probably going to be really ugly, So that's when, I just started to think about, obviously I need some help. And I wouldn't say I was, I had it all figured out on specialization, but, I brought in some help and kind of accidentally specialized. Right? I said, okay, some of this stuff, this clerical stuff, some of this kind of technical, task-oriented stuff I'm going to give away. I want to focus on, negotiating and marketing and client contact, which are still really, really broad categories, right?
Right.
So then starting to do that and realizing, okay, I can make some more money this way, and I'm actually happier doing it. And then starting to realize, all right, okay, so buyers is taking up a lot of my time. Now, they're profitable, but if I were able to have someone help me with buyers and only work with sellers, then I could do a lot of volume as one guy. And so that was kind of my next step towards specialization. But that being said, that started happening, 8, 9, 10 years ago. I've been doing this about 14 years. So really the first 4 or 5 years, I was winging it. I was doing what a lot of people are doing. And for a lot of that, I didn't realize the risk or the downside or what I was kind of leaving on the table as far as value being delivered and income potential. But as soon as I became aware of it, it became pretty glaringly obvious that I had to change.
Right. So I mean, you're spread thin. You're doing a million different things. So realizing that you have to maybe stop working with the buyers or a lot of the things you were doing with buyers, what were the three things that that you had to hand off if you added an agent to do those roles for you?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. So we that's ironically, that's kind of how we focus on every role on our team is like, each person should have about three things that they focus on. They need to be an expert in those three areas. They need to be world class in those three areas. And it's fun because we can have someone join our team, and within 60 or 90 days, I'm confident. I put my money where my mouth is that at those three areas, they're as good or real close to any agent in the market. Within a year or so, I would say that an agent on my team that's specialized for a year is going to be top 1% in the marketplace. So for a buyer agent on our team, really what they want to do is they want to prospect. They want to convert, meaning on the phone and face-to-face in the appointment, and then they want to manage the client relationship. So those are the three things they need to do well. They don't need to be really great at, dealing with the title company. They don't need to be really, really great with lender-related documentation. They need to know their stuff. They need to be above average in these areas, but they don't need to be the world's best in these areas because we have a transaction coordinator, and her big three areas are dealing with, title-related deals, timing-related deals, making sure that everything happens, time-sensitive. And then the other is really dealing with the other agents that are involved in the transaction. So that's one of the things she does. Client care coordinator is a role on our team. I'll just keep going until you stop me.
Sure. Well, no, it's good, but we'll get deeper into these and how you're able to necessarily figure out, that these are the main things that this position should be doing, right?
Yeah, yeah, and you figure it out because your gut instinct is, okay, what are the things I don't want to do? Let's get someone else to do that. But that's actually a pretty good way of going about it, right? That's a good way for you to be left with the 2 or 3 or 4 things where you're most gifted, you're most passionate, you're going to have the biggest impact on your client. You're going to really legitimately provide world-class value. So, for me personally, there's 3 things that I really love to do on our team. Number 1 is the marketing. I absolutely love the marketing. Number 2 is I love to teach and coach and consult and train our team, right? And then really the third thing that I really do love to do is negotiate. Now that's one that as my role progresses, I'm getting away from a little bit more as I get out of kind of any of the direct transactional stuff. I still do some of it, but as I bring in more and more specialization, I'm narrowing and narrowing and narrowing even more. But those are kind of my 3 main areas of focus. Obviously, I'm involved with budgeting and planning, and recruiting is kind of the number 4 that's becoming number 3 now, is really just constantly focusing on really gifted, really passionate, really fun to be around people. So, some of that process is literally making a list of everything you're doing and just saying, these are the things I don't like to do, that I don't feel like I'm super gifted at, but not just giving it to anyone, giving it to someone that's going to be their 3 things that they would not want to give away. So giving it to someone that really loves that and can be really good at it and really enjoy it. So, as you do that, go ahead.
Yeah, so let's jump back 8-9 years, and when you had that moment where you were spread thin, and you started to go through this process, did it help you kind of realize within yourself what you enjoyed doing? I mean, tell me a little bit about that, a little more detail.
Yeah, I'm not a guy that necessarily lacks for confidence. I think, probably if anything, pride's probably a problem, and it crops up every once in a while. But, what I learned is whether I think I can do it well or not, it's good for me to want to do it, right? So as I started to learn, these are the things I want to do, and they're the things I should be doing, that gave me a lot of freedom to grow my business and to say, you know what? I shouldn't be doing that. That means somebody else should. That means I need somebody else, and I can be more profitable, more productive. I can grow. So yeah, I mean, it was it wasn't an overnight kind of aha, but as I continued to do that, and it allowed me to focus and focus more, because focus is kind of the big word for all of this, is to have each person really focused. We absolutely saw positive, feedback on that, and even from clients. A lot of people kind of feel like if I were to do this, I'm losing control of my client's experience, and really what you're doing is you're gaining control and you're adding expertise where there wasn't any before. So yeah, that's exactly what we saw, 8, 9 years ago, and then we've had to course correct a few times. We would a lot of times I would delegate because I didn't want to do it, but I was giving it to the wrong person. I was giving it to someone they didn't want to do it either. They weren't gifted in that area. That was not the right 3 primary focus areas for them. So it's not only about specializing, but it's specializing in areas where you're inclined to really deliver world-class value.
So let's jump back to the first role you mentioned was the buyer's agent role,
Yeah.
and the 3 things. Now, how does that process go? Do you have a checklist for that person? How do you know that? How do you know when they're going to be good at that as well? And how do you oversee that transition and really have that trust in that you can kind of turn to the side and say, all right, you're ready to go. You can do this whole role yourself.
Yeah. So it's a difficult question to answer if you haven't screwed it up a lot. So we've done that wrong a bunch. So what we've built out literally is a 10+ week onboarding new team member training program, and that's delivered through video and email and face-to-face time and group and team time. So it's pretty methodical. It's probably, I want to say last time we checked it was 80+ touch points of kind of training and orientation and onboarding of that. So we're starting them out before they've even got the job. We're telling them, do you feel like if you could focus well in these 3 areas? And we've evaluated through personality profiling and skill set profiling and some testing and things to find out, are those 3 areas that they're going to default to as an area of giftedness,
Mm-hmm.
And so then we're walking them through real life practice, on the ground training and shadowing other people's deals and things like that. But we're also role playing a ton, practicing a ton, letting them get to see transactions and things like that. But specifically for a buyer agent, as far as prospecting, we're going to let them listen to successful prospecting calls. We're going to make calls with them. We're going to show them how an appointment is supposed to go. We're going to get feedback from them. We're going to allow them to ask questions. We're going to answer those questions, but only really in those 3 primary areas. The other stuff, the gaps, will come through experience and through time. Our primary focus is really in those 3 areas. The other kind of overarching area that everybody's got to work on is mindset, of course. So that's a big piece of the early stages of me being able to trust a new team member, is knowing that their mindset is right, that they're going to be looking for ways to specialize. They're going to be looking for ways to add amazing value. Does that answer the question?
It does answer the question, and I think what people will really find interesting is if we continue to go through each position that you have in the business and kind of go over those 3 main things, because I think a lot of people are probably on this call, and in general, a lot of agents don't know exactly which roles that specialized person should be doing and what they should be doing, and that maybe they're giving too much or they're giving them 2 things instead of just 1. So let's go through that. So the next thing you have is, you said transaction coordinator, client care coordinator. Tell me a little bit about that position.
Yeah, so on our team right now, that's a combination role. We've got an amazing gal. She managed title companies for 22 years, so she's super, super gifted. So, one of her main focus is to be dealing with the title companies. So we got to get everything processed. Some states have attorneys, so it would be an attorney in that state. In Texas, where we are, it's title companies. So making sure that contracts get where they're supposed to get, to the lender, to the, whoever needs it, title company, appraiser, surveyor, inspector, all of these different people. Making sure that all those dates line up, making sure the documentation is delivered, that homeowners association information gets collected, that survey affidavits get collected, that disclosure notices, everything's done by the time it's supposed to be done. Now she's doing this while our agent is out at another appointment, showing a property, writing a contract, picking up a new buyer, prospecting, doing an open house. So they can focus on building transactions, building clients, building relationships. She can focus on closing those things out. So the title related stuff, the detail oriented administrative stuff is pretty much number one.
Yeah.
Dealing with, go ahead.
I was gonna say, so I, I know that like with a solo agent, I mean, I can't even imagine how they would ever be able to do all that and grow their business, right?
Yeah.
So what's that limiting belief of like you have to get over and actually spend money to hire somebody? Because I feel like a lot of people feel like, well, I'd love to do that, but I can't afford it, or you know what? How do you get past that?
Yeah, so I'll tell you how I got past it, and then I'll probably tell you a better way to get past it. But, for me, like I said, I just had to tap out at some point and say, all right, this business is going to start going backwards if I don't get some help, because things are going to start slipping through the cracks. I'm going to have people starting to fire me and complaining, and we just can't have that, right? So in the beginning, you've got to hustle, right? In the beginning, you've got to decide, what am I willing to give up to grow? And you've got to focus on profitability in order to be doing that. So don't waste your money on a bunch of image advertising. Put your money towards having somebody come in that's going to help you be more productive. Whenever you make a hire, this is a topic for another day, but if you make a hire, that should be an investment as opposed to an expense. That person within 90 days should be net positive as far as your team goes, right? So you need to be able to pay somebody for 90 days. And then after 90 days, if they haven't allowed you to go and do more deals, meet more people, complete more transactions, then it wasn't a good hire. But for this role specifically, if you just looked at your calendar and said, how many hours am I spending on tasks that are not creating new business or generating new revenue, and you could put someone in that role for whatever your market will demand, $30,000, $40,000, $45,000 a year, whatever it is. How many transactions would they have to gain you to cover and then beyond their investment, their cost to you? And most markets, that's going to be another, 5 or 6 deals a year. Every other month, could that person free up your time? Now, a lot of times the question is, are you going to use that time effectively once you get it back? So that's on you, not on that hire. But to me, that's how you evaluate that decision. Can I get myself busy enough that I could, for 90 days, I can float this, maybe even 30 or 60, and then I can start to see that as I give this time away, I'm going to fill it with the things that I need to be doing, dollar productive activity, the most revenue generating thing I could be doing. So that's how I would make that decision. I made it out of absolute necessity, out of panic, to be honest.
Right, which probably wasn't the best time to be making that decision. You kind of waited the last minute there.
But because then you're training somebody while you're in a mess instead of seeing it coming ahead of time and pacing yourself. So yeah, you're exactly right.
Right. So you literally are breaking down the numbers. You're like, all right, so I'm doing this many hours a day, a week, a month of this type of work that isn't actually proactively making me money. It's just stuff I have to do in order to get the deal done. So you just went and added up the numbers and were like, all right, now I have an extra 3 hours a day, let's say, to go and get new business, right?
Yep, exactly. What? If you could save yourself 1 hour a day, it'd be worth paying somebody. But it probably is 2 to 3 hours a day. You could do another hour of prospecting. You could do another hour of paying closer attention and being more skilled on the deals you're already working on. And you could do a third hour with your family or your friends or your bed. And all those would be good things.
And real quick, I want to mention again, we have a lot more people viewing now. So again, on the right, there's a question and answer box. Feel free to jump in with a question at any time, and we'll get to it during the call. So let's.
Yeah. So go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead.
Yeah. So we were kind of in the middle of what the transaction coordinator does, and we talked about the big area of focus is kind of the title and transactional and detail oriented stuff. Number 2 is dealing with the team members on our team, and making sure that they have what they need so that they can go out. She's making sure that file is kept together, that we've got the contract, the amendments, and any receipts for work or anything like that. And on the flip side, she's dealing with the agent on the other side. So for our buyer's agents, she's dealing with that listing agent if there is one. For me or our listing agent, she's dealing with the buyer agent on the other side, and that's a big job. Anybody on this call right now that's got a real estate license has done more than one deal, has probably hung up a phone and mumbled something slightly unpleasant about having to deal with the agent on the other side and how it's causing delays and keeping the deal up. So you've got someone there to do that. That's one of her big focuses so that our agents can go out and do more business. So those are kind of her big 3. And it's such a beautiful thing to have someone else do that for you that enjoys doing it.
Yeah, because that type of role is such like an organizational role
Yeah.
where most entrepreneur agents that are starting their own businesses, that's not their best traits, as you would say, characteristic traits, right? Is
Yeah,
that what you found
exactly.
when working with other agents?
Absolutely. In myself and in almost every single top agent that I consult with or that comes in for a consulting day, it's like, please show me how I can stop doing this. It makes me want to punch my hand through the wall, you know. And the reality is, it's not an easy hire. You know, you can't just go, oh, here, this person likes a spreadsheet, because they do need to also understand the intricacies of a transaction. So a lot of times, it's a role that you hire someone maybe for kind of an administrative role, and then can transition them into that after they've been around some transactions. Potentially, it's an agent that no longer wants to be in the field, that wants to come in, that happened to be a more detail-oriented person. But once you find that person, I mean, they can be truly invaluable, you know. So that's kind of that transaction coordinator role. And on our team, we also call that a client care coordinator, because she does have a lot of client touch and keeping them happy.
All right, so we've gone through two roles, the buyer's agent and then the client care coordinator. Now, at this point, what are you doing still, and then what's the next delegation of a specialization role?
Yeah, so that's in my business. That's kind of how the hiring. I got first person I added was a buyer agent. It probably should have been the administrative help.
Hmm.
I would recommend that most people do that first, um, and then go to buyer agents, and then you know, depending on your business, probably more administrative help. The way that my business grew, just to be honest, you know, the next thing that came was more buyer agents, and so we grew that way. I handled listings as long as I possibly could, and still do some, but do have some help now. So let's just kind of talk listing agent. It's probably one of the last roles that you're going to add, but on some teams, you just don't need, you know, more than one or two administrative people. So on some teams, you're going to go administrative help, buyers agents, listing help, and then you're going to be team lead, you know, kind of vision setting, coaching, consulting, accountability, hiring, that kind of thing. So right now, or let's just say that next role would be listing agent. I call that a marketing agent, by the way. I hate the word listing. You have to use it because it's kind of a marketing, an industry term, but I use it as little as possible. Nobody wants to hire us for us to put them on a list, right? What we offer has to be more valuable than that, right? We have to offer marketing services, right? So our marketing agent, what most people call a listing agent, three primary focuses, fairly similar to a buyer agent: prospecting, conversion, whether it be on the phone or face-to-face, and then managing that client relationship on the sell side. Now, they sound very, very similar, but the buyer agent role and the marketing agent role are worlds apart. So, for instance, you know, a buyer agent's probably going to cap out at somewhere around 6 or 7 buyer transactions a month, where really, without a personal assistant or a showing assistant, they're going to be totally, their mind's going to be blown. A listing agent, a marketing agent, should be able to handle 20 plus listings, you know, marketing properties at a time. So the percentage of time in each of those categories is a little bit different. The relationship management on the marketing agent looks very, very different. They're probably going to have weekly contact and then transaction-specific contact. A buyer agent might be out and in houses 3 or 4 days a week with a potential buyer. So it's going to look very different, but the three areas of focus are actually very, very similar. Prospecting looks different. Appointments look a little bit different. On our team, we do the appointments here in the office for both buyers and sellers. A lot of people are going out to the house for a marketing or a listing appointment. I strongly recommend you work on a system. We can help you with that to do them in the office. But if you're going out, that's where a lot of time is going to be consumed, and you've got to allocate that piece of the three areas of focus really, really well so that the other ones can get done.
Got it. So how do you? I know a lot of people, or a lot of agents that I talk to, you know, throughout working with Viral, try to specialize the showing role, and then they try to specialize a prospecting role. How do you feel about that and specializing these roles to individuals, and how would it affect potentially those lists, or the marketing role and the buyer agent role?
Yeah, so I'm a huge fan of specialization almost without any limitations. So we have inside salesperson as well. So in the event that a buyer agent is setting their own appointment, it's exactly as we explained. In the event that an inside salesperson has set that appointment, whether it be virtual or in-house, ours are in-house, but a lot of people are using virtual. The areas of focus are the same for the buyer agent, but with that client, the amount of dedication and intention can be heightened in the two other areas. You know, we're not looking to, if we were to say, if you were to go to 100% prospecting person, so your buyer agent is no longer prospecting at all, I'm not looking to add a third thing for them. Now I'm saying, great, focus on just those two areas and be even better at those two. Now, if you could add a showing agent to that as well, they're still going to focus on the client experience, and they're still going to focus on, you know, the quality of the negotiation of that process, things like that, and conversion. But they're not going to be focused on prospecting. So I'm not looking, if I take one, I don't want to add one. If I take one, I want them to focus even more. In a perfect world, everybody's doing one thing and one thing only. You do have to be careful, though, when you start playing with that relationship. I have seen people do the showing agent thing really, really poorly, and it really does hurt their conversion ability. People go out and show houses with a guy that really doesn't know the market. They're just showing, and they come back and negotiate with a guy that's never seen the house. And if that system's not managed really well, you're going to lose quality clients that way. And so it can be done very well, but you've got to really, those people have to be highly gifted. You know, they have to be specialists. They can't just be task-oriented, part-time, hourly help. They've got to be a specialist. So if your showing assistant is just a helper, that's not a good thing. If your showing assistant really is great at doing that, then that's a value add.
Right. So, because if you go to those, but you know, if you really break down those roles that much, then they need to be a really, really good an expert at that role in order for those people to take on more and more business, right? Because otherwise, then you start messing with your profitability, I'm assuming.
Yeah, and you start messing with your kind of workflow. So you've got a showing agent that's constantly busy showing houses, and you've got a buyer agent that's just kind of sitting in the office waiting for somebody that wants to make an offer. They're not prospecting, they're not showing, but they don't have enough volume of active buyers coming from the showing agent to be working transactions. So you start having one person waiting on another person, and then one person only gets paid when the other person converts. So that you can get too many cooks in the kitchen, in my opinion. Most teams really don't have room to have showing agent, buyer's agent, inside sales agent, transaction coordinator, marketing coordinator, which we have, you know, broker owner. You know, most of the time that buyer agent's going to be able to manage, you know, the showing and the prospecting. But I do love those roles if your team needs them. What I see a lot of people doing is because of the ego of having a bigger team, or the ego of being able to say, look how you know, intricate my organization is. They start adding this stuff because it sounds really cool, but the profitability hits the ground, retention of clients, conversion of clients hits, you know, tanks goes down, and those just, you know, those aren't good things. So you want to be careful. Just like anything business systems or marketing related, you want to test it, track it, look at your numbers, review it, improve it. You don't just want to, you know, go from your gut, throw it up against the wall and see what sticks, because nothing might stick, and you might wake up with a, you know, without the business that you had hoped you were building, and all the money you spent on it gone.
Right. So I know that, you know, there's tons of different models on compensation, and I wanted to just ask one question. We had a question from Bren here, right? About what you paid your first buyer's agent and your first transaction coordinator. Now, I know that a lot of that depends on a lot of different factors, I feel like, and there's not one right thing. I think it can depend. Tell me a little bit about how you went through that experience, I'm sure, and figured that out over time.
Yeah, I mean, I think the buyer agent answer is a little bit easier. It should be somewhere up to 50%, and it depends on what you provide, and if it's are you handing them ready deals? Are you handing them, you know, name, phone number, email? Are you giving them systems to generate leads on their own? You know, do they have help and support? You know, what's your typical commission structure? So there's a lot of things that are there. But I've always been pretty much in that range for my buyer's agents. And you know, people always, I get a lot of calls and questions about fee structure because I'm really open about it. That's how buyer agents work on my team. You're not going to sell 100 deals and then come to me and try to get a higher split. That's never going to happen on our team. Now, what's going to happen, and the question that I love to get is, hey, Todd, I want to make some more money. How can I make some more money? Great. Let's work on growing together and building together and leveraging you and giving you more specialization and giving you more help, working on price points and things like that. But the second somebody starts asking for more and more split, what they're saying is, I want to be less and less and less part of the team. I want to isolate more and more and more. I want to need you less, do more on my own. And I don't believe that that's how world-class value is delivered. So what I want to hear is, hey, I want to make some more money. That's awesome. What I don't want to hear is, hey, I want to become less and less connected to the team. I want to be less partnered with you guys. That's just not acceptable for our model.
And potentially it could be the other way, right, Todd? To where if they want to make more money, they actually might take less of a split, but they'll be working more deals because you're able to manage and specialize the role a little bit more, right?
Yeah. The best agents I've ever had came to me and said, hey, I don't care how we structure it, but I made 180 this year. I want to make 250 next year. How do you think I can get there? And it's like, okay, cool. Well, would you be willing to sacrifice this if we were to try something new here? Yeah, I would. Hey, would you be willing to try to focus in this different area if we were able to push some more opportunities your way? Yes, I would. Or, hey, no, that's not a good fit for me, but that's a conversation that you grow towards. Like you said, maybe it's given a little bit on split so that something else can be provided. Maybe it's opening up a geography or a property type or a price point, or it's focusing on quality versus volume or the opposite. I mean, there's a million ways to do that, but yeah, it's looking at income as opposed to commission split. That's just kind of the default realtor method, and I think it's really silly. As far as compensation on the transaction coordinator, now that is a whole nother world. So you can do that virtually, you can do that part-time, you can do that full-time. I've always done it full-time on site, and well, that's not true. I've had part-time for a while. But that's typically on my team been an hourly plus bonus. I really like to have those people licensed, and so hourly is just totally going to be dependent on your market and what it takes to to give somebody a healthy income. You don't want to save $500 a month by not paying a really great person. But you do want to find someone that's going to make you another $5,000 a month. You want to find someone that's going to be motivated, and you want to find a way to motivate them. I don't want anybody on my team that's not at least in part compensated by the production of the team. So if someone on our team can make their living just fine, regardless of whether somebody else succeeds, in my opinion, that's a bad way to do business. Now, some people have a much higher likelihood of impacting the bottom line. Other people are a little bit removed, so you've got to be realistic about that. But I want everybody to be focused on everybody succeeding, and we've been able to do that for the most part, and it certainly makes it more fun too.
Yeah, and that's something too that, like, as that role grows and that person gets better and better, that you can adjust the pay accordingly to that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And if you've got really great people, their ability to increase your revenue is going to grow. And so your ability to return value for value should grow too. If not, you're a jerk. At the end of the day,
yeah.
At the end of the day, if somebody's coming to work every day and looking for ways to improve productivity and profitability on your team, and you're not going to incentivize them with that, then you probably don't have a really long tenure of running a business left in front of you.
Right, absolutely. So. All right, so we've gone through most of the roles. Is there any what would be for you? You're kind of in the process of maybe changing your role, and let's talk a little bit about what you're good at now. Some people actually aren't necessarily good at managing and running an entire team and recruiting. And maybe what would that hire look like to run your whole business for you? And let's talk a little bit about maybe those roles, those higher level roles, as you've done the other specializations.
Yeah, so I've got several thoughts on that. The first one is we do have a marketing and operations director here on our team, and that was my first step towards getting myself out of some of those areas. Now, I do enjoy leading, and I enjoy teaching, and I enjoy equipping. What I don't really enjoy, I'm just not naturally gifted in the tracking, the systematic part, the systems that are involved with the technology and our automation and things like that. I love to create those things, but I'm not a big fan of keeping them running daily. So we brought a guy in he actually started here as an intern as well. Frank and I talked before about doing a whole episode on interns because it's awesome. But
I
Kenny,
agree.
yeah, a lot of people listening probably have heard me talk about Kenny before. He's an amazing and valuable asset to our team, and he runs a lot of the day-to-day parts of the business. He's making sure that people are where they need to be when they need to be. He's providing a lot of one-on-one accountability for our team members. He's making sure that systems operate, that leads get to where they need to get. So that role could be, split up on different teams, as a lead coordinator, as a marketing manager, as a systems guy, as an office manager, whatever you want to call that. But he does a lot of that, and that allowed me to further focus really on the high-level marketing, training and equipping of our team, and attracting and retaining really talented people. So that's kind of step one of how I did that. I will say, if you don't feel naturally gifted or inclined to lead at all, this is a really, really hard hire. It's one that requires a lot of humility, and it's one that requires some really, really careful evaluation of your different candidates, because you're looking for someone that's naturally got a dominant personality, and you're looking for them to come and be that for you, but not be you to your business. You still have to provide, some unique personality and aspects to your business. But to have somebody come in and kind of be a driver, someone come in and be a motivator and kind of set the pace is a tough hire. You want to look for somebody that's definitely done that before. And really, I've seen some people try to bring people in from outside of the real estate industry, and I've seen that fail much more often than it succeeds. So I like that to be a role that you grow from within your organization. You see somebody who's got significant leadership ability, also understands the transactional side, understands lead generation and conversion, and you can pull them up into that role. So I'm not saying it can't be done outside that, but I'm going to be honest, I've seen that fail vastly more often than succeed. And for me, it was intern, failed attempt at inside sales, really successful kind of journey as client care transaction coordinator into marketing project guy, up into kind of marketing and operations director that also kind of oversees client care and a few other things. So that's how it worked for me. I've seen it work for other people as kind of a agent to lead agent to operational guy.
Right. And I think you hit on something there that is real important, is the fact that specifically Kenny in your organization, he went through all the different roles, and that's what you had to do. And that's what our agents out there are doing. They know they have had to do all the roles. And I mean, tell me about how important that is, you think, in growing your business like that.
Yeah, I think, it's funny when you see kind of what I would call an old timer. You see a guy that's been around for a while and he's got a really great business. That kind of guy really respects a bottom-up mentality. I came in the mailroom and I worked myself up and now I own the place kind of mentality. There's not 87 roles in my organization, right? But someone needs to have a familiarity with each one of those different roles. They don't have to have done them all for 5 years, but they're not going to be able to come in and lead those people when they don't truly understand and respect what those people are being called to do every day. So I do think that's huge. Interestingly enough, the one role Kenny never had on our team was as an active agent. Now, he's licensed, but he's never been a heavy transactional guy. But he's worked the transaction coordination. He's been in on negotiations, on appointments, on showings. So he's seen it more than almost anybody that hasn't been in the role. So you can make up for one or two of those roles with exposure and training and experience, but you're not going to be able to make up for 3 or 4 of those roles. It's just not likely to happen.
Got it. So how do you feel about when you bring in someone new, having them shadowing kind of in each specialization to really see the intricacies of the whole business as an entirety?
Yeah, everybody that joins my team joins on a 90-day trial period. That's just the way we do it. They get to feel us out. We get to feel them out. But we also have, I mentioned earlier, we have about a 10-week onboarding, training, equipping, kind of assimilation. We call it onboarding program. So I believe hands down that experience is the best trainer. I also believe I'm a pretty decent trainer, right? I also believe some of my agents are pretty good at taking a new guy along, letting them shadow. So it's all of the above, but absolutely that shadowing method. And then part of that is cross-training, right? So a buyer agent's going to shadow a listing agent some too. They're going to sit by the transaction coordinator for a day or two. They're going to sit by the inside sales guy for a day or two, so that they really understand when I hand this guy off, I know what's happening. By the time that guy comes to me, I know where he's been. We've got a video, actually. Now might be a good time. Let me see if I can share my screen here, Scott, and we'll see if we can show this video. This is something we show people before we hire them, and really we show this to our clients too. Let me see if I can cue this up here.
Yeah. All right. You can see it.
Is really the team structure. Can you hear that?
Yep, we're good.
People ask that question 50 different ways is the thing. So a lot of times what we have is people are ticked off at agents, and they'll say, yeah, well, the last 5 people told me the same thing, so what makes you different? And I actually love that question, because one of our core values is that we differentiate with excellence. And it sounds a little bit cheesy, but that's the core of what we do. We fight hard for it. So if I was speaking to a seller, what makes us different is really the team structure that we've got. I really believe that God gives us each unique gifts and abilities. And I think, unfortunately, most agents are trying to be 10 different people all at once. They're trying to be an expert in appraisals and surveys and showings and property valuations and property marketing and negotiations and contracts. And really, one person can't be a world-class expert at all those things. So I've built my team around that idea that we need to have experts in each of those areas. So we've got buyer's agents that only work with buyers. We've got selling agents, we call them marketing specialists, that only work with our sellers. We've got closing coordinators that all they do is take a file from the point where we have an agreement and move it through the closing process. So they're working with the title, the mortgage, the insurance. We've got a client care coordinator whose primary job is to make sure that our clients are super happy all the time. They've got what they need, questions are answered, things like that. As a broker, my primary focus is to make sure that our clients are getting exactly what they need, but also to make sure that our agents really are experts, that they're constantly trained, that they're being pushed to be able to serve clients at an extremely high level. So on a team level, that's really what differentiates us, is that we truly are a team, and you're going to get the benefit as a client of ours of all those different areas of expertise. And you're going to get 100% focus from 6 or 7 or 8 different people, as opposed to a divided focus from one person. So that's a key area of differentiation for us. When it comes to marketing and things like that, there's a list a mile long, and I would always tell somebody, we can get into a lot of.
So anyway, that's kind of an example of how we not only do we specialize internally, but we market our specialization to grow our business, to generate leads, to generate new clients. So it's really twofold. It's not just internal. It's part of who we are and how we communicate who we are to the consumer as well.
Right. So let's talk about that as a whole, because I think that's really important. Is how have you seen your business as you've been able to grow and go through this process of specializing in your roles? How have you seen the value change, and then the reaction of your clients that you work with and the value that they're getting with working with your team now compared to where you were before?
Well, it's so funny because we have clients that worked with us before and that are working with us now. They've done 3, 4, 5 transactions with us over the last 13, 14 years, and so they've seen the evolution of the business. And it's always fun to get their honest feedback and just say, hey, how did this go compared to 6 years ago when we sold your first house? And the feedback is almost universally fantastic. It's like, what, hiring Sarah was one of the best things you ever did. Hey, the guy that we worked with buying, Trevor or Jeff, whatever, these people are awesome, and it really makes sense that they only do that. I really felt like we had an advantage, that the other agent on that deal seemed like they were just always in a mess and always confused, and our guy seemed like he was always focused. So it's huge, and a lot of people listening kind of know of our team by being able to charge kind of higher than average fees and being able to deliver higher than average results. Selling homes faster, 7 or 8% higher than market average. being more profitable, putting more money in our clients' pockets, selling them quicker, all those things. All of that has come not only through specialization, but in a big, big way through specialization. I'm not trying to do it all myself anymore, and so each of those things is getting done at a much higher level, much more quickly, much more organized. At the end of the day, it's a heck of a lot more fun to come to work knowing that I don't have to do everything. And that's a big, big deal. And in a business as complicated as residential real estate, our industry's done a really bad job of communicating the value we deliver. It should be on par with a CPA or an attorney or a really highly trained, highly equipped, highly educated professional that's delivering a very highly detail-oriented result. But instead, we're thought of as a bunch of guys that work out of the back seats of our car, lease a Lexus, and fumble through some deals and make more money than we deserve. Well, I'm committed to changing that on our team, in our market, and hopefully in other agents and teams and all over the country. And you don't have to be a team to take advantage of this idea. If you're a solo agent right now, hear me clearly. You can specialize. You can hire a VA. You can lean on your transaction partners. You can have your title company doing a couple of extra things for you. You can have mortgage lenders doing a few extra things. You can go to your preferred vendor partners and say, look, here's how I want to work systematically, so this is a more seamless process. So I can lean on you where you're a better expert than me, and you can lean on me where I'm a better expert than you. You can do this as a single agent. Obviously, I'm a big believer in the team concept, but you can do this as a smart, dedicated, full-time, committed single agent. As a part-time agent, I'm not sure you're going to be successful at pulling this off. But as a full-time individual agent, you can at least get started specializing and focusing so that you can deliver truly world-class value to your clients. And I believe you should do that. That's why I do stuff like this. I want to encourage you to do that and hopefully be a part of equipping you to do that. So you can create a video like this. Viral would be a great way. You guys, y'all could help people do this, right?
Well, absolutely. I mean, what we do, just as a company, is kind of along these same lines. Is that we're a done-for-you hire service system that allows you to not be doing something that you probably shouldn't be doing. It's a specialization hire, kind of like hiring someone on your team, right? So yeah, we can definitely help you with video marketing to your database. But I want to jump back to, you mentioned the value, and I think that has a lot to do with a mindset shift that you kind of have to make as well. And how do you lean on people and get past the fact that you can trust them to really do this? And what's your mindset have to be like?
Yeah, that's a 10-hour-long question. I'll give you the short version, but it's such an important question, So yeah, maybe you are a solo agent, or maybe you are a good team leader, but you're asking yourself, I can do this. I can focus on 2 or 3 things, but I'm not sure I can trust these other people to focus on 2 or 3 things. So the mindset is a big deal there. But first, you just have to genuinely believe that God has given each of us unique gifts, and you can. Maybe you're not a God person. I am, obviously, but you just have to believe that people are wired to do certain things well, and they're not wired to do other things well. If you believe that, then it's really foolish to ask people to do things for money to represent your company name or your name in an area where they're not naturally gifted. That just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Hey, I know that Scott's really, really great at this, but he is not a good spreadsheet guy. He's not a good detail guy. But we got Scott over here handling all of our contract to close stuff. That's just not smart, right?
Terrible idea.
Yeah. So me too, buddy. But
yeah.
So you just have to address that. If I've got more than one person, I've got more than a few gifts. So how can we start pushing people with the right gifts towards work in the area where they're gifted? And if I believe that people are created or wired or instinctively, or their experiences have led them to that, then I want to utilize that to the advantage of my client. And if I do that, I'll be well compensated for doing so. It is a mindset thing. From a real estate industry perspective, you've got to come a long, long way from the standard industry mindset, which is we're all doing the same thing. It is a one-man job. We all charge the same thing. We're all worth the same thing. The result's basically going to be the same. The market dictates price. The market dictates value. I think that's a bunch of baloney. And if you don't believe that, you're going to have a really hard time adding complexity to your process. Specialization from a far back perspective is complexity. It's more people than one. That's complexity. It's systems, it's checklist, it's technology, it's flow through, it's work, it's charts, it's project management, it's all those things that if you're a one-man show and it's all supposed to stay up here, man, you're in real big trouble.
Yeah, you're in big trouble if you're trying to do it from the seat of your pants in your head. So I think a lot of it, when you go back to that mindset shift, is a lot of new agents and solo agents that really want to do well but just aren't ready yet or don't know how. I think one of the big things that you kind of mentioned, you talk about, is that instead of looking for the next commission, and you're so short-sighted, how big is it to look at the big picture, like a year out, 2 years out, and the things that you can do now to affect where you are then, instead of thinking about the next commission, living by that fly by the seat of your pants because you feel almost stuck that you have to do that.
Yeah, I mean, tell me if I'm not answering your question, because where I would go with that is the whole point of approaching real estate as a business, as opposed to winging it and getting a deal every once in a while, is to produce consistency and predictability in your business. And in order to do that, you've got to be able to look out into the future and say, what's my business going to look like in December? It's September right now, right? So what I'm doing this month is going to show up on the balance sheet probably next month and the following month. But what do I do so that I can be sure that in December and January and February I'm hitting my numbers, I'm productive, right? The only way I can see to do that is to have systems and to have some complexity to your business. That's very difficult to do by yourself. It really, truly does require, some expertise, and so you just can't be an expert at everything. I don't know anybody that's truly world-class at lead generation, lead conversion, relationship management, closing conversion, vendor management, accounting, tracking, accountability, recruiting. It's some of that stuff makes me want to throw up. My wife is a CPA. I recruited for that early. I found someone that's gifted there and brought them on board early and long term. I don't ever want to have to do that, and she comes into the office a couple of days a week. But looking down the road and saying, here's where I want to be, and being honest with yourself and saying, I'm not going to get there on my own, that's just common sense. That's not even genius or brilliance or wisdom. That's just not being an idiot. So you've got to recognize, if I want to produce more than I can personally produce in an hour or a day or a week, I'm going to need some help. And the best way to get help is to get expert help. And the best way to use expertise is to focus on a few key areas. And that's what we're talking about.
Awesome. So I'm looking here to see if any questions.
Yeah, I actually had a couple of questions up front. If you've got one, holler at me.
No. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think one of the big questions that people ask in this category is, what if you've already got a team and you've already got people on board and they're not this specialized, right? It's never too late to evaluate your people for their giftedness or their passions, right? We use DISC profiling, DISC. People use Myers-Briggs, StrengthsFinder, whatever. I think some are better than others, but you've got to do something to know, hey, Scott's inclined to be super, super people-oriented. He's really persuasive. He's really interactive, but he's not going to be slow and steady, follow the system every single day. So let's put him in a role to be in front of clients and talking about value. Who's going to be the person that comes in behind him to make sure that the documents get signed in the right places on the right time, get scanned, get faxed, get copied, get over. Okay, so we've got this other person on our team that maybe they're in the wrong role, and they might be happier if we slightly adjusted their role to that support role and said, hey, you might not be in real estate in 6 months if you stay in this role. You might be an invaluable piece of our team if you slid over into this role. You would be more productive, and so would Scott over here because he can hand off stuff. So, it's not too late if you've already got a team, if you've already got an assistant, if you've already got vendor partners you really like. to go back and evaluate strengths and passions and start to kind of tweak and adjust how you can work better together.
And how do you have that conversation, Todd, with someone that's on your team and they're working really hard, but you know that now they're not in the right role, and maybe the role that they should be in isn't going to compensate them as much? Have you run into that, and how do you handle those, that type of situation?
I can think of two different scenarios where that happened, and it went two different ways. In one situation, the conversations went the same. The results were different. Basically, in both scenarios, I said, "Hey, Scott, we do pretty regular reviews, at least every 90 days. We see each other every day. Everybody comes into the office. We do morning meetings, so there's not a lot of absence. So it's just saying, hey, let's grab a few minutes and saying, hey, I love your energy. I love your commitment. I do want to talk to you about kind of your long-term future here and where I think I see your giftedness really creating a really healthy long-term opportunity for you. I want to be honest. I think the role we have you in now is probably not really ideal for you. I can tell there's a few things that we're asking you to do that you don't really love doing. There's a few things that we're asking you to do that aren't in your core area of giftedness. I do think, though, that we might have a really ideal role for you over here. I need to be honest with you. It probably doesn't have the same long-term upside as maybe this role over here, but I do think as far as job satisfaction and growth potential, this is hands down, the best opportunity for you on our team. So I want to give you the choice. Would you like to move into that role, or are you feeling more like me that maybe our team is not the best fit for you long term? And I've had one person say, let me think about it, and come back and say, I don't think this is the best fit long term, and that is a good thing for your organization. Right. I've had another person come back and say, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you said that, because I felt like I was drowning and I was afraid to tell you that I didn't feel like I was good enough at my job. And then we've made that shift, and they've been in that role for 4 years. So
awesome.
To lose someone is a good thing if you're telling them, I want to help you get to the right role for you, and it just may not be on our team. That's okay.
Yeah.
In real estate, we hang on to relationships too long sometimes, where you can maintain a healthy, respectful relationship but not do business together, whether that's a client or a team member.
All right, so guys, we're coming short on time here. We got a few minutes left, so please, if you have any questions that you want to direct at Todd, ask him right away, and we'll get them answered. Then, Todd, what do you want people to do that are watching this that maybe want some more specific advice from you and a little more help?
Yeah, I think the thing that we help people with the most on the consulting side is really positioning themselves to be more valuable to their clients and to be compensated at a higher level. So if people will go to todds7secrets.com, TODDS, number 7, secrets.com, TODDS7secrets.com, they can just put in their email. That's all you got to do, and I'll send you some quick information on really the top 7 secrets that we use to get sellers' homes to sell for 7% higher than market value, and that's one of the big ways we're able to get much higher commission than is average for our area. 7.5%, sometimes higher than that. You can charge whatever you want to charge. Let's all be compliant here, but to be more valuable to your client, most importantly, put bigger checks in their pocket, have them much happier with you, referring more, repeating more. So if you'll go to todds7secrets.com, you can get that totally free. All you got to give me is an email so I can email it back to you. And then if you want to see the video that I just posted, that's just on our main website, DallasHomeRealty.com, DallasHomeRealty.com. You can see that video, and that's been huge for us. It's part of our package that we send out after we set an appointment. So people really, really like that.
That's awesome. And going back to you being able to add the amount of value you add and charge that 7.5% goes back to everything we just talked about today, right? And finding the experts and putting them in the right roles. That's kind of the foundation of starting the process of being able to add that value.
Yep, that and a really healthy track record of producing results. So first thing is to focus on where you're gifted. Produce great results. Track your results. Focus more. Get more focused. Track and record and publicize and market those results. That's part of our presentation. I said, listen, back when I started, when I was a solo agent, there's no way I could have done this for you. But because of Jeff and Trevor and Elise and Sarah and Kenny and Dana and all these people, now I can, and you're going to love it. And they fall in love with it. They do.
Nice. Awesome, man. Well, we're out of time. We didn't get more questions. Thanks, Peter. Anything you want to say? Finalize this, and thanks for having me on, Todd. I really appreciate being with you. I've learned a lot, which is great.
Cool. Yeah, I appreciate you, Scott. Thanks, everybody, for jumping on. We'll be here next month, same time, same place. And if you have any topic suggestions or things you're dying to know, let me know. Jump over to todd7secrets.com, and we'll connect later. Thanks, guys.